The night was cold, rain falling endlessly over the city, each drop a tiny drumbeat against the cracked window of a small apartment. Inside, a dim light cast a weak glow, revealing Lena Carter sitting beside her son's bed. She held his small hand tightly, her heart aching with every shallow breath he took. Sam was only 6, but his face was pale, and a harsh cough racked his small body every few seconds. Lena's eyes were red from unshed tears, but she forced a brave face. She gently pressed a damp cloth to his forehead, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. You'll be fine." The doctor's words echoed in her mind. Sam needed medicine, expensive medicine her empty wallet couldn't afford. She had borrowed from neighbors, sold everything of value, even the dress she saved for job interviews. Now, all she had left to sell was her hope. Ever since her husband left, disappearing before Sam could even walk, life had been a relentless battle. A single mother fighting for survival, waking up at dawn for cleaning jobs, skipping meals to ensure Sam never went hungry. She never complained, never asked for help. But now, her world was crumbling. The cleaning company shut down, leaving her jobless for 2 months. The landlord's threats grew louder, and now her precious son was sick. Thunder rumbled in the distance, mirroring the storm in her soul. The city felt cruel, indifferent, but as she gazed at her sleeping son, a fierce promise formed on her lips. "I'll find a way," she whispered. "I promise I'll fix everything." The next morning, determination battled the ache in her bones. Lena put on her old coat, grabbed her faded resume, and stepped out onto the rain-slicked streets. She went from cafes to hotels to stores. Her plea for work met with the same cold refrain. "Sorry, we're not hiring." Her shoes were soaked, her stomach was a hollow pit, but the image of Sam's smile, bright and healthy, pushed her forward. By afternoon, exhaustion and despair were setting in. She sank onto a bench downtown, rubbing her cold hands together. That's when a sleek black car pulled up. A tall man in a tailored gray suit stepped out, his face calm, distant. He looked like he belonged to another world, a world of effortless power and wealth. As he walked, his phone slipped from his hand, landing near Lena's feet. Without a second thought, she picked it up. "Excuse me, sir. You dropped this." The man turned, his dark, sharp eyes meeting hers. For a moment, they held a strange sadness. He took the phone, his voice deep and steady. "Thank you." A polite smile was all she could offer. "You're welcome." She walked away, unaware that this brief encounter with the city's richest businessman, Ethan Gray, had just rewritten her destiny. Ethan Gray was a man shrouded in loneliness. The head of Gray Industries, he had everything money could buy, but nothing it couldn't. Raised without love after losing his parents young, his heart had become a fortress of ice. People saw him as proud and emotionless, but deep down he carried a hidden pain. Later that evening, as Lena trudged home, tired and defeated, the man's eyes flickered in her memory. Cold, yet holding an unspoken storm. She shook her head, muttering, "Stop thinking about strangers. You have real problems." Her real problem was waiting at her door. The landlord, his face a mask of impatience. "2 weeks late," he grunted. "Pay by tomorrow, or you're out." The door closed, and the fight went out of her. She leaned against it, tears finally falling. "Mom, are we okay?" Sam's weak voice called from the couch. She wiped her eyes and forced a smile. "Of course, sweetheart. Mommy's got everything under control." But she was drowning. That night, sleep was a stranger. Lena sat at the kitchen table staring at a mountain of bills. The numbers were a cruel joke. Rent, medicine, it was impossible. She bowed her head, a desperate prayer escaping her lips. Please, just one chance. Not a miracle, just a job. The next morning, as she walked Sam to a neighbor's, the black car reappeared. A woman in a neat uniform stepped out. "Miss Lena Carter?" Lena froze. "Yes, that's me." The woman smiled. "Mr. Ethan Gray asked me to find you. He said you helped him yesterday." Lena was baffled. "I just returned his phone." "Yes," the woman replied, "and he wanted to thank you. He also asked if you're looking for work. His personal caretaker resigned unexpectedly." Lena's mind reeled. Caretaker? For Mr. Gray? The position was private, responsible for managing personal tasks at his residence. The salary was more than she could dream of. I don't have any experience," she stammered, feeling wildly out of her depth. The woman's smile was reassuring. "He doesn't mind. He said he prefers someone honest." She handed Lena a card. "If you're interested, come for an interview tomorrow." As the car drove away, Lena stood frozen, the card a lifeline in her trembling hand. A caretaker for a millionaire. It felt like a fairy tale, or a trap. All night she worried. What kind of man was he really? Was she good enough? Then she looked at Sam, sleeping soundly, and her fear hardened into courage. "I'll do anything for you," she whispered. This was her chance. The next morning, dressed in her cleanest clothes, she practiced smiling in the mirror. "You can do this," she told her reflection. She arrived at a mansion that looked like it was pulled from a movie, its grandeur making her feel impossibly small. The woman from yesterday led her inside a house that smelled of flowers and felt utterly silent. And there he was, Ethan Gray, dressed casually, his gaze unreadable. He asked a few simple questions. She answered honestly, her voice shaking slightly when she told him about Sam. For the first time, a flicker of something soft crossed his eyes. After a moment of silence, he said, "You can start tomorrow, Art." Lena's jaw dropped. "Just like that?" "I trust my instincts," he replied, handing her an envelope. "Your first week's advance." Tears welled in her eyes, but she fought them back. "Thank you, Mr. Gray." He turned to the window. "Don't thank me yet. The job isn't easy." That evening, for the first time in months, Lena came home with bags full of groceries and the medicine Sam needed. As they ate a proper dinner, Sam's eyes sparkled. "You seem happy, Mom." She smiled, a real smile this time. "I got a new job, sweetheart." Thinking of the cold, mysterious man, she added softly, "It's different. But maybe this time, things will change." Later, as the rain began to fall again, soft and calm this time, Lena looked at the stars. She was grateful, but an unsettling curiosity remained. What secrets did Ethan Gray hide behind those lonely eyes? She had no idea that her simple kindness was about to thaw a heart that had been frozen for years. Their paths had crossed for a reason, and a story was just beginning, one that would test both of them in ways they could never imagine. The next morning, Lena woke with a flutter in her stomach, a mix of nerves and a tiny spark of hope. It was her first day at the Gray mansion. She packed Sam's lunch, his favorite sandwich cut into stars, and kissed his warm forehead. "Be good, my love," she whispered. "Mommy's going to make things better for us." Sam, still half asleep, smiled. "I know you will, Mom." His simple trust was the only fuel she needed. When she arrived, the tall, ornate gates of the mansion glided open, like the start of a fairy tale. In the morning light, the place was even more imposing. All clean glass, manicured lawns, and silent walls that felt like they were holding their breath, keeping secrets tucked away. Ms. Claire, the assistant, greeted her with a brisk but polite smile and gave her a tour. Every room was a picture of perfection, but it felt like a museum, a house without a heartbeat, without laughter echoing in the halls. Lena met Ethan in the grand living room. He sat in a high-backed chair, engrossed in a newspaper, a picture of calm, controlled distance. As she approached, he looked up, his eyes cool and assessing. He gave a slight nod. "You're on time. That's good." His voice was steady, even, without a hint of warmth. "Thank you, sir," she replied, her own voice barely a whisper. He handed her a crisp sheet of paper. "Here's your list of duties. Keep the house in order, handle deliveries, and ensure everything remains pristine." I prefer my mornings to be quiet." "Yes, sir," she answered, taking the list. "Claire will guide you with the specifics," he added, his attention already returning to the newspaper, dismissing her. Lena started her work, moving like a shadow through the vast, silent house. She dusted priceless antiques, arranged books on towering shelves, and polished the long marble hallway until it gleamed. Every surface sparkled under her care, yet the house retained its chill. She couldn't help but wonder how someone could live surrounded by such immense beauty and still seem so profoundly lonely. At lunchtime, she sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea. Through the large window overlooking the gardens, she saw Ethan walking alone among the rose bushes. He looked like a king in his castle, a man who had everything the world could offer. But his eyes, even from a distance, told a different story. There was a fracture in his composure, a brokenness he tried so hard to conceal. Later that afternoon, Ethan's voice cut through the silence. "Claire, bring me last week's financial report." Claire was on an important call, so Lena, seeing the opportunity to be useful, stepped forward. "I can get it for you, sir." She quickly located the file in his study and handed it to him, careful not to intrude. Ethan glanced up, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "You're quick." A small, nervous smile touched her lips. "I try to be." He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Good." It was the first time his tone had softened, even just a fraction. When she returned home that night, exhausted but relieved, Sam ran into her arms, hugging her legs tightly. "How was your new job, Mom?" he asked, his bright eyes full of curiosity. "It was good," she said, stroking his hair. "My boss is very quiet, but he's not rude." Sam giggled. "Maybe he likes you." Lena laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Oh, sweetheart, he's just my employer." Days melted into weeks, and Lena found her rhythm within the silent mansion. She learned the small details of Ethan's life. His tea with just a whisper of sugar, his preference for absolute silence during breakfast, the way he would sometimes stare out the window lost in a world only he could see. One rainy afternoon, just as she was about to leave, the sky opened up. A torrential downpour lashed against the windows. Lena stood by the door, worrying about the long walk to the bus stop. Suddenly, Ethan appeared beside her, holding a dark, expensive-looking coat. "You'll get soaked," he stated simply. "Oh, it's fine, sir. I don't mind the rain," she replied, not wanting to impose. "Take it," he said, his tone firm, leaving no room for argument. "Consider it borrowed." Lena's heart gave a little flutter. She smiled softly and accepted the coat. "Thank you." That night, Sam's eyes widened when he saw the coat. "Wow, Mom, that looks so fancy." "It's not mine, sweetie," she said, hanging it carefully. "It's just for now." Sam giggled. "Well, it still looks really good on you." The next morning, she returned with the coat neatly folded over her arm. When Ethan saw it, he said quietly, "You could have kept it longer." "I didn't want to spoil it," Lena replied honestly. For the first time, a genuine, though faint, smile touched Ethan's lips. "You're different." From that day on, he started to see her, really see her. He noticed how she never complained, never asked for anything more, and always worked with a quiet, dignified focus. Her gentle presence was slowly filling the empty house with a subtle warmth. Even the pragmatic Miss Claire remarked one day, "She's good for this house, sir. It feels alive again." Ethan didn't reply, but later that night, as he tried to read, he found his thoughts drifting to Lena. The soft cadence of her voice, her unwavering patience, and the way her smile could light up her tired eyes. Then, the unexpected happened. While cleaning his study, her hand brushed against a small photo frame on his desk. It tumbled to the floor. The glass cracked. Lena gasped, her heart sinking. Oh no. It was a picture of a younger Ethan with a beautiful woman and a little girl, all of them smiling. Just then, Ethan walked in. Lena froze, her face pale. I'm so sorry, sir. It slipped. I didn't mean to. He held up a hand, stopping her. It's all right. His voice was different, softer, almost fragile. She hesitated, looking from his face to the photo. Are they your family? He nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the cracked image. My mother and my sister. I lost them years ago. Lena's heart ached for him. The vastness of his loneliness suddenly made sense. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice filled with genuine sympathy. Ethan looked at the photo, a deep sadness in his eyes. You don't have to be. But thank you. He walked out of the room, his steps slow and heavy with the weight of his past. That night, Lena couldn't stop thinking about him. For the first time, she saw the vulnerable man behind the cold, imposing mask, someone who was carrying an immense pain all alone. The next morning, she brought a small potted plant from home and placed it on the windowsill in his study. When Ethan noticed it, he raised an eyebrow. What's this? Lena offered a small, hopeful smile. A little green can make a room feel warmer. My son says plants make people happy. He stared at the little plant for a long moment, then looked at her, and a faint, real smile appeared. Maybe your son's right. From that day, the fragile ice between them began to truly melt. Ethan started greeting her with a quiet, "Good morning, Lena." Sometimes he'd ask about Sam. Once, seeing how tired she looked, he insisted she sit and have a cup of tea with him. They were small gestures, but they spoke volumes more than words ever could. One evening, as Lena was getting ready to leave, Ethan stopped her. If your son ever needs anything, you should let me know. She paused, touched by the unexpected kindness. Thank you, Mr. Gray. He looked at her, his eyes gentle. You can call me Ethan. She blinked, surprised. Ethan, she whispered, the name feeling foreign yet right on her lips. He smiled, a proper smile that reached his eyes. That's better. As she walked home that night, the city lights blurred in her vision. Something had shifted, not just in her life, but deep within her heart. It was a feeling she couldn't name, but she could feel it growing, slow and steady, like the little plant on his desk. At the same time, Ethan stood by his window, watching the rain fall. For years, his heart had been a fortress, silent and untouched. But now, he felt a warmth spreading through him, something real and terrifying. She had come into his life seeking only to provide for her son, and he had wanted only to be left in peace. But fate, it seemed, was weaving their lives together for a reason neither of them could yet comprehend. As the days blended into weeks at the grand gray mansion, Lena's gentle presence began to melt the icy stillness of the house. The rooms, once so cold and imposing, now held a soft, welcoming warmth. Fresh flowers graced the dining table. Light music drifted through the halls in the mornings, and even the air itself seemed to breathe easier. Ethan couldn't help but notice. He never voiced it, but he felt the shift with every passing day. Each morning, Lena would greet him with a smile that reached her eyes, bringing his tea just the way he liked it. He'd give a curt nod, a mask of indifference, but his heart secretly appreciated the gesture. One afternoon, Ethan found himself in his office, the papers on his desk a meaningless blur. He couldn't concentrate. His mind was caught on a loop, replaying the sound of Lena humming a simple tune earlier that day. Her voice, so calm and peaceful, had settled in his thoughts and refused to leave. He pushed his chair back and walked to the kitchen. There she was, stirring a pot of soup, humming that same soft melody. "You sing well," he said, his voice startling her. She jumped slightly. "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't realize you were here." A rare, genuine smile touched Ethan's lips. "Don't apologize. It's nice." For the very first time, Lena saw a smile on his face that wasn't shadowed by coldness. It was warm, and it made her heart do a little flip. "Thank you, sir," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. Later that evening, a sudden downpour began. Lena stood by the large window about to brave the storm to head home. It's too dangerous to go out now. Ethan's voice cut through the sound of the rain. She turned to face him. It's just rain, sir. He shook his head, his expression firm. Stay, please. So they sat by the crackling fireplace, the rhythmic drumming of rain against the glass filling the comfortable silence between them. After a long moment, Ethan spoke, his voice low. I used to hate quiet nights. Lena looked at him curious. Why? Because the silence reminded me that I was alone, he admitted, his gaze fixed on the flames. She offered a gentle smile. Sometimes silence means peace. Ethan's eyes met hers. In the warm firelight he saw the exhaustion in her eyes, but it was outshone by an incredible kindness. He wanted to say more, but the shrill ring of his phone shattered the moment. The next day, Lena arrived early and found a surprising sight. Ethan was outside with the gardener, heaving heavy terracotta pots. A laugh escaped her. You shouldn't be doing that, sir. Ethan wiped the dirt from his hands, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. I got bored sitting inside. You're different, she observed softly. He looked at her, his expression uncharacteristically open. Maybe I'm just learning to feel again. Their eyes met and held for a fraction of a second too long before they both quickly looked away. That night, as Lena tucked her son, Sam, into bed, he asked, Mom, do you like your new job? She smoothed his hair back, a smile on her face. Yes, I do. Your boss sounds nice, Sam said sleepily. Lena hesitated for a moment. Then her smile widened. He is. A few days passed, and the walls around Ethan continued to crumble. He started sharing stories from his past, tales of his mother's garden, his childhood escapades, his love for music. Lena listened intently, her quiet presence and warm smiles encouraging him to open up. For the first time in a very long time, Ethan felt like someone was truly listening. Then, one afternoon, their peaceful routine was shattered. A frantic call came from Sam's school. He had a high fever. Lena rushed to Ethan's office, her face pale with worry. Sir, I need to go home. My son's sick. Without a moment's hesitation, Ethan stood up. I'll drive you. She tried to protest, but he was insistent. The car ride was tense, with Lena staring silently out the window, her mind racing. He'll be fine, Ethan said softly, breaking the silence. Kids are stronger than they look. When they arrived at her small, cozy apartment, Sam was lying weak on the couch. Ethan knelt beside him, his voice gentle. You must be Sam. Sam's weary eyes fluttered open. Are you my mom's boss? Ethan smiled warmly. Yes, and you must be her whole world. He pulled a small chocolate bar from his pocket and handed it to the boy. Get well soon. Lena watched the scene unfold, her heart swelling with a gratitude so intense it almost hurt. No one had ever shown her and Sam such simple, profound kindness. As Ethan stood to leave, he said, Stay with him tomorrow. Don't worry about work. Thank you, sir, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Call me if you need anything, he said, and then he was gone. That night, Lena watched her sleeping son, a soft smile on her face. Maybe Ethan Gray wasn't the cold, heartless man the world saw. Maybe he just had a heart that had been hidden away for too long. The next morning, she sent him a text. Sam's better now. Thank you for helping yesterday. His reply was almost immediate. I'm glad. Take care of him. When she returned to the mansion, Ethan was waiting for her. How's your son? He asked, genuine concern in his eyes. Better. He says thank you. A faint smile touched Ethan's lips. Good. And stop calling me sir. It's Ethan. Lena let out a soft laugh. Okay. Ethan. A new warmth settled in the air between them, an unspoken understanding that something significant had shifted. Later, her coworker Claire couldn't resist a little teasing. You know, Mr. Gray smiles a lot more when you're around. Lena felt a blush creep up her neck. He's just being kind. Claire winked knowingly. Or maybe you're the reason he's changing. The truth was, Ethan had noticed it too. He found himself listening for the sound of her laughter, and the house felt vast and empty on the days she wasn't there. That evening, as Lena was cleaning, her foot slipped on a patch of wet floor. Just as she was about to fall, a strong arm wrapped around her waist, catching her. Her eyes flew open to find herself inches from Ethan's face. The world seemed to stop as their eyes met in the sudden, charged silence. "Careful," he whispered, his voice husky. "Sorry," she breathed. He slowly let her go, but the feeling of his touch lingered on her skin. That night, Ethan stood by his window, staring out into the darkness, completely lost in thought. A startling realization hit him with the force of a tidal wave. He was falling for her. Miles away, Lena sat by her own small window, a similar storm brewing in her heart. "Why does he keep appearing in my thoughts?" she whispered to the empty room. Neither of them knew what destiny had in store, but it was too late to turn back. Love, unexpected and undeniable, had already found its way into their hearts, and their story was only just beginning. Time slipped by quietly at the gray mansion, each day a soft brushstroke painting a new picture of closeness between Lena and Ethan. Their conversations stretched longer, weaving through the quiet halls, and their smiles, once hesitant, now bloomed with a gentle warmth. It was as if Lena's presence had breathed life back into the house, dusting off the shadows and letting the light in. But peace, as it often does, proved to be a fleeting guest. One crisp morning, the tranquility was broken by the arrival of Ethan's old friend, Richard. He spotted Lena working near the grand hall, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips. "So," he said, his voice laced with amusement, "this is the famous caretaker." Lena, ever polite, simply nodded. "Good morning, sir." Richard's smile widened. "You know, it's quite something. Ethan doesn't usually let anyone get this close." Just then, Ethan entered the room, his expression firm. "That's enough, Richard." Lena, feeling a blush creep up her neck, instinctively stepped back, the invisible line between employer and employee suddenly feeling stark and clear. Later that night, the mansion was silent again, but Ethan's mind was anything but. He sat alone, the echo of Richard's words bouncing off the walls of his thoughts. He knew what people would say, what they were probably already whispering. He was the wealthy heir, the master of the house. She was the caretaker, a single mother just trying to make a living. The world saw a chasm of class between them. But his heart? His heart didn't care about money or status. It cared only about her. The next day, a chill had returned to the air, and it had nothing to do with the weather. Lena felt it instantly. Ethan was distant, his words clipped, his warm smiles gone as if they'd never been. A knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. Had she done something wrong? Did I upset you?" she finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. He shook his head, avoiding her gaze. "No, it's just work." But it was a lie, and they both knew it. The truth was far heavier. He was afraid of the whispers, afraid of the judgment, but most of all, afraid of the depth of his own feelings for her. A few days later, the whispers found their voice. Claire, the head housekeeper, approached Lena, her expression as sharp as her tone. "You should be careful," she warned, her eyes like chips of ice. Lena frowned, confused. "Careful? Talking about what?" "They think you're after his money," Claire said, her words landing like a slap. Lena froze, the accusation sucking the air from her lungs. That's not true." "Then maybe you should leave," Claire said, her voice devoid of any warmth. The words hung in the air, cold and final. That night, sleep was a distant shore Lena couldn't reach. She sat by her son Sam's bed, watching his peaceful face, and whispered into the darkness, "I only ever wanted to help you, my love." A tear escaped, then another, rolling silently down her cheeks, carrying the weight of a world that wouldn't understand. The next morning, Ethan found her in the garden, the early light catching the redness in her eyes. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice gentle, a stark contrast to the turmoil he saw on her face. She wouldn't look at him. "Maybe I should leave," she said softly, her voice trembling. He took a step closer, his heart clenching. "Leave? Why would you leave?" "People talk," she whispered, finally meeting his gaze. "I don't belong here. They're right." "I don't care what they say," he said, his voice firm, urgent. "But I do," she replied, her voice breaking. "I have my son to think about. His reputation." Ethan looked at her, the pain in her eyes mirroring his own. "You're not the problem, Lena," he said, his voice soft and full of a truth he could no longer deny. "You're the reason I feel alive again." Before she could process his words, before she could even breathe, Claire's sharp voice cut through the moment. "Mr. Gray, the reporters are outside." Ethan's head snapped toward the house. "Reporters? They've heard the rumors," Claire said, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. "About you. And her." Lena's heart plummeted. This was it, her worst nightmare. Ethan rushed toward the front of the house, and the scene that met them was chaos. A barrage of flashing cameras, a chorus of voices shouting questions. "Mr. Gray, is it true you're dating your maid? Miss, over here. How long have you known him?" The world swam around Lena. Her hands started to shake uncontrollably. She backed away, whispering to herself, "I can't do this. I can't." Ethan heard her, turning from the chaotic mob. "Lena, wait!" But she was already gone. She ran, not looking back, ran from the mansion, from the cameras, from the life that was never meant to be hers. She didn't stop until she was back in her small apartment, the sound of a sudden downpour beginning to beat against the windows. She collapsed through the door and hugged her son, burying her face in his hair. "I just wanted to work," she sobbed. Her phone buzzed on the counter. His name, Ethan, glowed on the screen. She stared at it, her heart a tangled mess of love and fear. With a trembling hand, she turned it off. Miles away, Ethan stood by a large window in his now silent mansion, watching the rain streak down the glass, mirroring the tears he wouldn't let fall. He whispered into the empty room, "She only wanted to help her son. And I fell in love with her." Outside, thunder rolled across the darkened sky, a dramatic score for the two hearts breaking in the storm. But this wasn't the end. Fate, it seemed, was not yet done. Weeks had passed since Lena left the mansion, and Ethan's world had fallen silent. The grand rooms, once echoing with her gentle presence, now felt cavernous and empty. He buried himself in work, but his mind remained elsewhere, lost in memories of her kindness, her quiet strength, and the smile that had brought light into his life. The mansion, his castle, now felt like a gilded cage. Claire, his loyal housekeeper, watched him with concern. "Sir, perhaps you should take a break," she'd suggest, only to be met with a hollow reply, "I already lost what mattered most." Meanwhile, Lena's new life was a daily struggle. Juggling 2 jobs to support herself and her son, Sam, she was exhausted but determined. Late at night, sitting by her own window, she would think of Ethan. She'd tell herself to forget the man from a world so different from her own, but her heart stubbornly refused. Sam, with a child's intuition, sensed her sadness. "Mom, are you okay?" he'd ask. Lena would force a smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart." But she wasn't. She missed Ethan more than words could say. One day, a notice from Sam's school announced a charity event. Eager for a distraction, Lena signed up to volunteer, unaware that fate was about to play its hand. As it happened, Ethan's company was the main sponsor. His assistant, seeing it as a good PR opportunity, convinced a reluctant Ethan to attend. He almost refused, but a strange pull, a whisper of a chance, urged him to go. That evening, the school hall buzzed with the cheerful energy of families and children. Lena, in a simple light blue dress, moved quietly among the tables, her grace a stark contrast to the surrounding chaos. Ethan arrived, flanked by his staff, his eyes scanning the crowd with detached politeness. And then he saw her, near the stage, helping her son with a decoration. For Ethan, time stopped. It was her, really her. Lena looked up, and their eyes met across the room. She froze, a tremor running through her hands as memories flooded her senses. The world around them faded into a blur of sound and light. Ethan began to walk towards her, his steps slow and deliberate. Each one closed the painful distance that had separated them for weeks. "Lena," he said, his voice barely a whisper when he finally reached her. She looked down, her heart pounding. "You shouldn't be talking to me here," he replied gently. "I didn't expect to see you." "Then maybe it's better if we stay apart," she said, her voice trembling with unshed tears. He didn't argue, his eyes simply reflected the depth of his own pain. "I tried to call you," he said softly. "I know," she whispered. "But the rumors, I couldn't bear to hear them again." Just then, Sam ran up, his face bright with excitement. "Mom, I finished my painting." He then turned to Ethan. "Hey, you're the man from the big house?" Ethan managed a kind smile. "Yes, I am." Sam grinned. "Mom said you helped us once." A blush crept up Lena's neck. Ethan's smile softened. "She helped me more." Before Lena could respond, the principal called her to the stage. She excused herself, leaving Ethan standing there, watching her go. A fierce resolve solidifying in his heart. He couldn't lose her again. After the event, as the crowd thinned, Lena stayed behind to help clean up. When she finally walked out, she found Ethan waiting quietly by the gate. A gentle rain had begun to fall. He opened an umbrella. "Let me take you home." She hesitated for a moment, then gave a silent nod. The car ride was thick with unspoken words, the rhythmic drumming of the rain filling the silence. Finally, Ethan broke it. "I'm sorry, Lena." She looked at him surprised. "For what?" "For not protecting you. For letting you walk away." Lena took a shaky breath. "It wasn't your fault. I had to protect my son." He looked at her, his expression full of understanding. "I know, but I still can't forget you." Her gaze softened. "Ethan, we're from two different worlds. It was never meant to be." He shook his head, his voice firm. "Maybe the world was wrong. Maybe love doesn't care about that." He pulled the car over near a small, quiet park as the rain eased. He turned to her, his eyes pleading. "Lena, I don't care about money or what people think. With you, I felt alive for the first time in years. You and Sam. You became my reason to smile." Tears welled in her eyes. "Don't say things you don't mean." "I mean every word," he said, his voice thick with emotion. He reached out, gently wiping a tear from her cheek. "You deserve peace, Lena, not pain." In the back seat, Sam stirred. "Mom," he murmured sleepily. "Are we home?" "Almost, sweetie," she whispered back. Ethan's faint smile returned. "He's a good boy. He's my whole world," Lena said. Ethan looked deep into her eyes. "Maybe he could be part of mine, too." Her heart skipped a beat. This time, she didn't look away. "Do you really mean that?" "Yes," he said, his voice unwavering. "I don't want to lose either of you again." A tear of hope traced a path down her cheek. A small, watery smile touched her lips. "Then don't lose us." Ethan's face broke into a radiant smile, and he leaned closer. "I won't." The next morning, sunlight streamed into Lena's small apartment, and with it came Ethan, bearing breakfast and flowers. The sound of Sam's laughter filled the air as Ethan helped him fix a toy car. Lena watched them, her heart overflowing. Weeks passed, but this time they were filled with light and laughter. Ethan invited them to a cozy cottage on his estate, not as employees, but as family. Life found a new, beautiful rhythm. One evening, as the setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, they stood together in the garden. "Thank you for coming back," Ethan said softly, taking her hand. She smiled. "Thank you for not giving up." He looked at her, his love shining in his eyes. "Lena, I fell in love with you when I didn't even understand what love was." Her voice was just as soft. "And I loved you when I thought I shouldn't." Their story, which began in hardship, had found its way to a beautiful new beginning. Because sometimes, the greatest love finds us when we're just trying to survive. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe for more content that we hope will brighten your day. See you next time.